So I want you to picture the year 2007. And imagine a 31-year-old athlete just, at the absolute peak of his global fame.
Right, top of the world.
Exactly. And he makes this decision that the entire sports media landscape basically called career suicide. I mean, they ripped him apart.
Oh, completely. It was seen as a massive mistake.
Yeah, because he took this huge pay cut. He walked away from the biggest, most prestigious sports stage in the world, and he moved to a league that, globally speaking, practically nobody watched at the time.
Nobody. It was essentially invisible on the global stage.
Right. And pundits just laughed. They called it a pre-retirement tour, A tragic step down for a guy who, I guess, just couldn't cut it in Europe anymore.
Which is so funny to think about now.
It really is. Because today, if you look back at the math, that single contract decision is valued at over $1 billion.
Yeah, it's staggering.
It is widely considered one of the greatest financial and strategic heists in the history of sports.
It's a move that completely rewrote the rule book. I mean, we look at modern athletes today, right? You have your billionaire club owners, global fashion icons, media moguls.
Oh, for sure. They're everywhere.
And we just kind of assume this was the natural evolution of sports and social media, like it would have happened anyway. But the sources we are looking at today for this deep dive, they prove otherwise.
They really do.
It had an architect. Someone built this.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are going through this massive stack of articles and financial breakdowns that outline basically the original blueprint for modern athlete influence.
Yes, the exact blueprint.
We are going to explore how David Beckham stopped being just a soccer player and became a titan. Like a guy who essentially built the transition model from being a laborer on a field to owning the factory itself.
It's just an incredible study in leverage, honestly. Because that shift from, worker to empire, it didn't happen overnight.
No, not at all.
It was this calculated, decades-long dismantling of how the world defined what an athlete was even allowed to be.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand the sheer magnitude of this transformation, we have to look at the baseline, right? The era he actually disrupted.
The starting point, yeah.
Right, like we have to look at what it actually meant to be a professional athlete in the early to mid 1990s.
Yeah, the pre-Beckham era. Which, if you're listening to this and you've grown up with athletes who act as their own media companies, this is going to sound like ancient history to you.
Like a totally different planet.
Exactly. Because in the 90s, the world viewed athletes through this rigidly narrow lens.
Right.
The absolute sole focus was on your physical performance on the field. That was it. Your value was dictated entirely by how fast you ran, how many goals you scored, and how well you executed the physical demands of your job.
The owners.
Right, for the owners who paid your salary. You were a worker.
Well, hold on. Let me stop you right there for a second. Because when I was reading that in the sources, my immediate thought was, well, what about Michael Jordan?
Yeah, that always comes up.
Right. Because Jordan was doing massive culture-shifting shoe deals in the 80s. I mean, he was a global icon.
Oh, totally.
So how is this blueprint we're attributing to Beckham actually any different from what Jordan did like a full decade earlier?
See, that is the pivotal question. Jordan absolutely revolutionized the athlete endorsement. But Jordan was fundamentally a sports figure selling sports equipment to sports fans.
Okay, right. Basketball shoes for basketball.
Exactly. He elevated the concept of the athlete as a billboard. But the critical difference with Beckham, and what our sources point to as the catalyst during his early days at Manchester United, is that Beckham didn't just want to be the billboard.
Right.
He wanted to be the entire advertising agency. He started crossing over into industries that had absolutely nothing to do with a basketball court or a soccer pitch.
He was merging with pop culture.
Precisely. Or rather, he was merging high fashion, mainstream lifestyle, and global commerce all together.
Yeah.
Like when Beckham started dating Victoria Adams, Posh Spice of the Spice Girls, it created this chemical reaction that sports media just didn't know how to handle.
They lost their minds.
They really did. You suddenly had this top-tier athlete sitting front row at fashion weeks, He's experimenting with these avant-garde haircuts that made front-page news.
Oh, yeah. The hairstyles were legendary.
And he's doing massive endorsement deals for lifestyle brands, not just cleats and sports drinks.
So he was bringing sports into the entertainment and fashion tabloids. Like, he took his cultural capital completely off the pitch.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is the financial shift that accompanied all of this.
Right. The money follows.
It does. The sources show that by the late 90s and early 2000s, Beckham's off-field revenue, his brand deals, his image rights, was beginning to completely eclipse his actual playing salary.
Wow. So his side hustle became bigger than his main job.
Exactly. He was signaling to the world that his value wasn't just in his physical labor on a Saturday afternoon. His face, his lifestyle, his aesthetic, that was the actual product.
Which fundamentally threatens the traditional sports structure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely it does.
I mean, if you're a team owner, you want your players focused 100% on the team. You want to control them.
Natural.
It's kind of like the 1930s Hollywood studio system, right? Back then, actors were just salaried employees for these massive studios. The studio told you what to wear, who to date, what movies to be in.
That's a really good analogy, actually.
Yeah, and if you look at the Manchester United management at the time, particularly their manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, they hated this celebrity lifestyle. They wanted a laborer, and Beckham was becoming a one-man corporation.
And that tension between the club and the corporation, that is exactly what set the stage for the first real stress test of this new blueprint.
Because it's easy when you're winning.
Right. Building a global, glamorous brand when you are the golden boy of English football and you're winning trophies and everything is going right, that's relatively easy.
But a true titan isn't forged solely in success. And here's where it gets really interesting, in my opinion. Because the true test of this entire model came when that carefully constructed, highly lucrative image faced sudden, just catastrophic ruin.
Yeah, the crucibles of 1998.
We really need to explain this because if you don't follow soccer or if you're just, too young at the time, you cannot overstate what a massive public relations nightmare this was.
Oh, it was a disaster.
We are talking about the 1998 World Cup. England versus Argentina, literally the biggest stage in the world.
Right. It's the round of 16. The tension is incredibly high. And early in the second half, an Argentine player named Diego Simeone fouls Beckham. Like, he pushes him to the ground.
Okay.
And Beckham, he's lying face down on the grass, and he petulantly kicks his leg up and clips Simeone.
Just a little tap, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a violent kick at all. It was just a flick of the heel.
Yeah.
But Simeone goes down like he's been shot.
Of course he does.
Right. And the referee walks over, pulls out a red card, and Beckham is ejected from the game.
And England, because they're playing a man down for the rest of the game, they ultimately lose on penalty kicks and they get knocked out of the World Cup.
And the fallout was biblical. You really have to understand the British tabloid media culture of the 90s to grasp it.
It was vicious.
They didn't just criticize him. They actively tried to destroy his life. The headline the next day in a major paper was, 10 heroic lions, 1 stupid boy. They even printed dartboards with his face on them.
Yeah, I read in one of the articles that angry fans literally hung an effigy of him outside a pub in London, like death threats. It was a complete national disgrace.
It was, and it was a moment where the narrow lens of that pre-Beckham era snapped aggressively back into focus.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, because the public, the media, the traditional sports purists, they all just reverted to judging his entire human worth by that one split-second mistake on the field.
Right, the worker messed up.
Exactly. According to the traditional rules of the sports industry, a crisis of this magnitude was supposed to be a career ender, or at the very least, it was supposed to permanently tarnish his marketability. Brands were supposed to drop him.
Right, because if you are just a worker on an assembly line and you make a catastrophic mistake that costs the company its biggest contract, you get fired.
You're out.
And even today, think about it. If a modern celebrity faced that kind of intense, localized hatred, what would they do? They would hire a crisis PR firm, they'd issue one of those notes app apologies on social media, and they'd retreat from the public eye for like a year.
Oh, they'd totally vanish. They would let the media dictate the terms of their exile.
But looking at the sources, he managed this fallout in a way that defied every single piece of conventional wisdom. Like, he didn't hide.
Nope.
He didn't issue groveling apologies. He used the hostility as fuel. And this isn't just some generic, sports comeback story. This is really about narrative mechanics.
And this raises an important question, right? Who actually controls the story when the chips are down? Because what Beckham did was essentially force the media to watch him succeed anyway.
Yeah, he went right back to work.
He went back to Manchester United for the very next season, which was arguably the most hostile environment imaginable. I mean, he was getting relentlessly booed at every single away stadium in the country.
I can't even imagine that pressure.
And under that pressure, he played the best football of his life. Manchester United won the treble that year.
Which is huge.
It's massive. They won the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League. And Beckham was the absolute engine of that team.
So he just outperformed the hate. But wait, did the brands stick with him during all this? Because usually sponsors run for the hills.
They did stick with him, yes.
Yeah.
And that's because he didn't pull back on the lifestyle aspect either. He continued to lean into the fashion, the high-profile relationship, the global endorsement.
Oh, wow. So he doubled down.
He did. He proved that his brand was anti-fragile. The more the traditional sports media attacked him, the more resilient his global brand became. Because, he wasn't just a soccer player anymore.
Right.
He was a pop culture protagonist going through a redemption arc.
That is so interesting. So he metabolizes the failure. He takes this moment of intense public ruin and he just weaves it into a comeback story.
Exactly.
I totally see why the sources highlight this now. The ability to survive that level of toxicity without losing your commercial leverage, that is the precise difference between a fleeting celebrity who gets canceled and a long-term industry titan.
He took the pen back from the media. By enduring that crisis, he proved to corporate sponsors that his value wasn't contingent on being perfect.
Right.
Or even on being universally liked by traditional fans.
Yeah.
His value was contingent on being undeniably relevant.
Undeniably relevant. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's track this timeline. He survives 98, he masters the European landscape, he eventually moves to Real Madrid and fully proves the concept of the athlete as a global lifestyle brand.
All right, check, and check.
So by 2007, he is 31 years old. His physical prime is realistically winding down.
Yeah, the knees are getting older.
Right. So the natural, traditional next step for an aging player in that era would be to squeeze out one last big contract in Europe, retire, and maybe become a television pundit.
That was the accepted trajectory, yeah. Rent out your expertise to a broadcaster.
But his next move wasn't retirement. It was corporate expansion. We're moving from personal resilience to structural ownership here. And that brings us to the move we teased at the very beginning of this deep dive, the MLS masterstroke.
Ah, yes. His decision to leave Real Madrid and sign with the LA Galaxy in Major League Soccer.
And as we established earlier, the media thought he was completely crazy. I mean, to put this in perspective for you listening, Real Madrid is royalty. It is the absolute pinnacle of the sport.
The very top.
And Major League Soccer in 2007 was not.
Not even close.
It was this fringe league struggling for relevance in the American sports market. And the headline numbers on his contract looked terrible. He was reportedly taking a pay cut from about $20 million a year down to a base salary of just $6.5 million a year to play in LA.
Which is exactly why the pundits called it a tragic cash grab.
Again?
Which is funny given the massive base salary cut. you
Right.
know?
Like, how is it a cash grab if you're making less money?
Exactly.
Or
They called it a desperate attempt by his wife to break into Hollywood. But they completely missed the underlying architecture of that contract.
So what does this all mean? How does a massive pay cut to play in a minor league translate to the greatest financial heist in sports history? Like, break down the mechanics of this contract for me.
All right, so this is where we see the actual transition from worker to owner.
Yeah.
Beckham and his management team, they didn't just negotiate a salary.
Okay.
They negotiated a revenue sharing model that was completely unprecedented in the sport.
Yeah.
Yes, his base salary was $6.5 million,
Right.
but he got a percentage of all Galaxy revenue.
Wait, all revenue, like team merchandise.
Everything. He got a cut of every single ticket sold, every jersey bought, every sponsorship the team signed, and as the joke goes, every hot dog and beer sold in the stadium.
Oh my gosh, every hot dog.
Literally everything. Because Beckham's arrival instantly sold out stadiums across the entire country, and it drove jersey sales through the roof. So his actual compensation just skyrocketed.
Wow.
Over his 5 years in MLS, he didn't make $32 million in base salary. He made over $255 million total.
Over $250 million.
Yeah.
Just by taking a percentage of the gross. I mean, that alone is brilliant. But that's still just optimizing your labor, right?
True.
He's still technically an employee of the Galaxy, just a highly compensated one. Where does the true ownership come in?
The true ownership comes in the second, much quieter clause of that 2007 contract. He negotiated the right to purchase an MLS expansion franchise in the future.
Okay.
And he locked it in at a fixed price of $25 million.
Okay, pause. I want to push back on this a little bit because hindsight is 20/20, right?
Here.
Was $25 million actually a good deal in 2007? Because I read in the sources that Toronto FC had just paid $10 million to join the league around that same time.
That's right.
So Beckham locked in a price that was actually 150% higher than the going rate. Was he really a visionary, or did he just get incredibly lucky that the league exploded in value over the next decade?
It's a really fair challenge. But you have to look at the cause and effect here. It wasn't luck that the league exploded. Beckham's arrival was the actual catalyst for the explosion.
Oh, I see.
He knew his presence would legitimize the league, that it would secure massive new television rights and drive franchise valuations up. He was essentially betting on himself to raise the tide.
He knew he was the rising tide.
Exactly. He wasn't buying a team in 2007 for $25 million. He was buying an option for $25 million, knowing full well that by the time he retired and was ready to exercise that option, the value of an MLS franchise would be exponentially higher.
Because of the work he was about to put in?
Yes. Thanks in large part to his own influence.
That is staggering.
And it played out perfectly. When he finally exercised that option to launch Inter Miami, the going rate for an MLS expansion team had skyrocketed to over $200 million.
Wow.
And today, some of those valuations are approaching $1 billion.
Yeah.
He bought $1 billion asset for $25 million just because he had the foresight to demand equity when everyone else was still arguing over an hourly wage.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, isn't this exactly like a top executive leaving a comfortable, massive tech giant like an Apple or a Google to become the founder of a startup where they take a lower salary but hold a massive chunk of founder's equity?
That's a great way to look at it, yeah. He realized that playing on the field was a depreciating asset. I mean, athleticism fades. Your knees eventually give out.
Right. Time is undefeated.
Exactly. But equity, ownership in a growing league, that appreciates long after you stop running. He used his immense cultural leverage to negotiate a contract that fundamentally changed his class status in the sports economy. He stopped being a laborer generating wealth for billionaires and became a billionaire himself.
Which brings us to the legacy of this entire blueprint, because Beckham's American experiment wasn't just a personal victory, right?
No, not at all.
According to our deep dive sources, it fundamentally rewrote the rules for the entire generation of athletes that followed him.
You really cannot look at the modern sports landscape without seeing the fingerprints of the Beckham blueprint everywhere.
But again, I have to ask, did he really change the structure for everyone, or is he just a unique outlier? I mean, we look at LeBron James today, building Spring Hill Entertainment, negotiating lifetime Nike deals, buying stakes in Fenway Sports Group.
Right.
Or we look at Cristiano Ronaldo with his global hotels and his lifestyle brands. Could they not have done that on their own? Didn't they just naturally realize their own worth?
I mean, they are brilliant businessmen in their own right, absolutely. Nobody's taking that away from them. But they're building skyscrapers on the foundation that Beckham poured.
Okay, that makes sense.
Beckham absorbed all the initial friction. When he did the fashion collaborations in the 90s, the traditionalists laughed and called it a distraction. But now, if an NBA star doesn't have a fashion line or a carefully curated tunnel walk aesthetic, we wonder what their marketing team is doing.
Yeah, he completely normalized it.
He proved the math worked at scale. When he moved to MLS for equity, the media called him washed up. Now, athletes across all sports demand equity, investment opportunities, and ownership stakes as standard parts of their contracts.
It's just expected now.
Exactly. Look at Lionel Messi moving to Inter Miami, which is Beckham's team, by the way.
Full circle.
Right. Messi's contract includes revenue sharing from Apple TV subscriptions and Fanatics merchandise. It is the exact same blueprint, just upgraded for the streaming era.
It really is a complete 180-degree flip in how power dynamics work in sports. Because before this blueprint, an athlete was a temporary tool used to build a team's brand. Now, the team is often just a platform used to scale the athlete's brand.
And this is why this deep dive is so vital, honestly. Even if you listening have zero interest in soccer or sports business. The underlying mechanics of what we've discussed today, they apply to absolutely any career, any industry, any creative endeavor.
How so? Connect that for the listener, because I think that's super important.
It's about recognizing the limitation of being a worker. In any system, if your value is entirely capped by your immediate physical output, like your hours billed, your code written, your goals scored, you are vulnerable.
Yeah, you're easily replaced.
Right. The moment you make a mistake, or the moment a younger, faster worker comes along, the system ejects you.
Right. You get the 1998 red card in your own career, and you're done.
Exactly. But if you follow this blueprint, if you control your own narrative, if you diversify your value beyond your core job description, and most importantly, if you negotiate for equity rather than just a salary, you become indispensable. You dictate the terms of the industry rather than letting the industry dictate its terms to you.
So, to recap this staggering journey we've been on today, we started with a 1990s laborer on the pitch, a guy who the world expected to just kick a ball, maybe do a few cereal commercials, and quietly retire.
Fade into the background.
Right. But instead, he built an advertising agency around himself. When he faced absolute public ruin in '98, he didn't hire a PR firm to hide. He forced the world to watch him succeed, and he metabolized that hostility into an unbreakable brand resilience. And then he pulled off the ultimate financial masterstroke, trading short-term prestige in Europe for a $25 million equity option in America.
It's incredible.
It really laid the exact foundation for 2024's billionaire athlete owners.
It is a phenomenal trajectory. And as we wrap up this analysis, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, building on everything we've just unpacked.
Let's hear it.
We spent the last 15 minutes detailing how one individual redefined an entire global industry simply by refusing to accept the narrow definition of his job. So, look at your own professional landscape. What unseen value are you leaving on the table because you're only focusing on the tasks you were hired to do? What is your pitch, and how can you start building equity beyond its boundary lines?
That is the perfect question to leave hanging in the air. A huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep thinking beyond those boundary lines, and we will catch you next time.